stretchy, squishy joints, very stretchy skin. Every joint goes all the way back. I'm weak as hell because I'm scared to hurt myself, where I'd just be doing like normal stuff. And then I'd pass out because, I can't really go from like an up to down position easily. I think I have EDS, right? I have an autoimmune disorder of some sort. And then no one believes you. And that's where a lot of people are. And then like, they don't really know what they have. They just know they have something special. Whenever they go to the doctor, nothing works. Doctors say, hey, this will be fine, but then it isn't every time. They say 2 weeks, it takes 8 weeks to heal. You go through the system and each of them essentially either hurts you, gives you advice to not move, or charges you a ton of money to get a very limited amount of help that sometimes is the opposite of what you need. What happens is you go to physical therapy and then you're like scared to try anything else without going and doing another $1,000 of PT. The reason why Whealth is so much more effective than a physical therapy route. Here's how you slowly and safely build muscles when you have hypermobility. And I'm in the hypermobility Reddit groups and stuff. When someone, 1 in 10, shows like a glimmer of trying to get better, I'm like, I got you. Check out the Hypermobility Wealth Program. If you're thinking about it and you're like, man, I just want some hope. That's the thing that gets me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have it.
Josh, first off, thank you and welcome to the Wealth Podcast. I went back to one of your Facebook posts on December 17th, 2023, and you said, hey, everyone, so excited to find these HSA applicable resources and community. 3 years ago, I was officially diagnosed with EDS hypermobility type. I quit sports and stopped doing most physical activity due to pain and fear of injury. My goals here are to become more connected with my body and movement so that I can move past fear of movement and injury and be more active physically. For years, I've struggled to find info on EDS that's not majorly negative or overwhelming to consume. I'm so dang grateful I found this group. 8 hours in, 3 workouts from Mod 1 into the program.
Yeah.
How does that feel thinking about that now? So that was a little bit over a year ago.
Yeah. No, that was sick. It was weird. It wasn't maybe traditional because I remember that. I remember just feeling like overwhelmed with gratefulness, like just to find any sort of like positive resource, like spending so many hours just being like, well, losing the mental game essentially. And being around and seeing everyone else lose the mental game, and then just be like, well, I guess I just can't do anything. Oh, that's really sad. I guess I'll just fail, and it gets really dark. You get dark, and you don't, and the people around you kind of have that same mindset. So I remember the first couple times I got on like the Facebook page, I was just crying, just waterworks, man. I was just like, these people care. And they're doing it, and other people are encouraging each other to like live and have great lives. And it was the first time I'd found that in years. And yeah, dude, it was awesome. That was definitely like the best part. It was crazy because when I first started like getting on the Facebook post and just like bawling my eyes out and like processing like how great it is to have something like that, I sort of like, I realized that the more and more I like thought about it and talked through it and like had conversations with people like this, the more I like processed like how bad it was previously. You know what I mean? Like I didn't even realize how dark it all felt, just
Sure.
feeling like you can't move.
Well, so take me into that realm prior to Wealth.
Yeah.
What was so dark about, Ehlers-Danlos or EDS, hypermobility? I mean, why were you feeling so constricted, so fearful, so anxious? Like, 'cause you had mentioned that, I mean, it was really awesome to hear. So first off, one thing, I remember you specifically because we had just launched our HSA like applicability thing to get paid with HSA money. And I saw you join and you mentioned that in the Facebook group. I was like, wow, that's so cool. Your message was awesome. We helped you pay with HSA dollars, which was just, it was a cool little win for us as a business. But what was so dark about that time or, prior?
Oh man, it's hard. So when you first, there's kind of two experiences people with EDS tend to have, or like hypermobility, like, stretchy, squishy joints, right? I don't do party tricks much anymore, as I've learned, but just like very stretchy skin, every joint goes all the way back, all that kind of stuff, right? Just to give my quick I swear I'm.
Yeah.
You know,
What are some other big, kind of things that you noticed growing up or whatnot with hypermobility? So you got the stretchy
absolutely.
skin, you got the fingers. What else?
Bruising. I loved paintball as a kid, dude. People thought I was a hero. They'd see because a normal welt like this big, right? You're like, oh man, that's a sick welt. These welts for me were like half my side, and the blood would pool for like weeks, right?
Wow.
So I remember that, and then the second was hickeys. So in high school, they're like, you're like, what the hell? Your whole neck is disgusting.
Yeah, you
And
look like you got mauled by a freaking tiger. You're like, no, it's just like a little kiss. I don't know why my entire face is red now.
nope. But those are like the obvious like ones. But there is this subconscious, right, where you sort of realize like when you hurt yourself and you're a kid, you see kids run around, they're invincible, right? They fall over, you hurt yourself, you're like, I'm fine, get up. But when you're not fine, you sort of like subconsciously start learning to be more careful, and to like don't hit that jump, like don't BMX biking, like don't. Like you start like moving a little more cautiously way earlier than everybody else.
Interesting.
Because you hurt yourself when you do the things other people do. So like subconsciously, you're just a lot more cautious.
Okay.
And you become to trust yourself a little less, like your movement.
Right. So that was something that you just picked up over the years, that you were getting hurt more. You're getting massive hickeys, the bruising, right? The skin stretching, fingers. I know you had mentioned like dislocations or subluxations, right, of elbows and knees and stuff too.
Yeah. So like, thankfully, I have some great friends who went to physical therapy in college, right? So I got just really lucky. Some of my best friends, who could like coach me through like pain and like how to move your body. So shout out to Tyler and Wes for always saving my ass. But like every time we, I guess every time you'd go to the gym like at like 20 years old, right? So I remember like distinctly multiple moments where I'd just be doing like normal stuff and then I'd pass out. Like I literally like just pass out because I can't really go from like a up to down position easily.
Right.
And then like, oh, dude, burpees? No, thanks. Like burpees, I actually physically can't do, which I learned like much later. But everyone always like, you're weak, like, because that try hard mentality of like bro gym through like as hard as you can, it actually breaks you. So you learn that exercising is dangerous. So for example, I remember like 2 times. One just doing like basic squats, like squat rack kind of stuff. That's like maybe 19, 20 years old. And just like hear it like a pop in my knee, I'm like, ah, but then my like knee never heals, right? And that's normal. Like people experience that. You just experience like 10 times more of that, 10 times easier. So or whatever your variable is, but so you kind of learn that it's dangerous to work out. Maybe you work out a little bit less. It's dangerous to play that sport that you love. So maybe you play it a little less. Over time, you kind of it's easy to transition towards like inactivity.
Right. Yeah. You're guarding. So. And then these are all just things that you learned through your life growing up, through kind of trials and tribulations and whatnot. But when did the official hypermobile EDS diagnosis come in your life?
Yeah. So I guess earlier I was starting to think that there's 2 paths, right? There's people who do a ton of research and they're like, I think I have EDS, right? I have an autoimmune disorder of some sort. And then no one believes you, right? And then there's and that's where a lot of people are. And then like, they don't really know what they have. They just know they have something special. Whenever they go to the doctor, nothing works. Doctors say, hey, this will be fine, but then it isn't every time, right? Like you get stitches, they come out. They try to set something, it doesn't set correctly. They say 2 weeks, it takes 8 weeks to heal. So you just like learn these things like, and you're just like, doctors suck. Like doctors are the worst. Everyone says that anyways. So you just kind of jump on. I thought doctors were all terrible most of my life. But anyways, you have those people who are like aren't believed, and then I was lucky enough to have a more minor version of like kind of hypermobility EDS. And there's like all these new types on it. I don't identify with it as much. I do research it occasionally, but I was lucky enough to have a younger sibling who has a more severe version of EDS, right, and some other autoimmune disorder stuff. So it kind of runs in the family, and they had these things even younger than me and more severe. So like they actually did a ton of research and learning, and they would come to me and say, hey, you're the only one in the world I've ever met who has bruises like me. are whose fingers pop out of joint and then don't go back and you can't use them for 4 days. You're the only one like me, and I think you have this. So I got really lucky in that they did a ton of the research, and then I got to like learn that. And when I did, I went to UNC Chapel Hill, right? North Carolina. So you go up there, those guys they'll do a bunch of tests. They'll kind of write stuff down, and they'll give you a clinical diagnosis and say, hey, you do have this thing, which is like, cool. Now what? And they're like, I don't know. We could research it. And then you're done. That was it. That's the clinic. Yeah. That's like the scientist side. They're like, right. You have it. I'm like, cool. Where do I get my pill? And they're like, there is none.
Right. Yeah. You're like, what do I do to like make my life better with that?
Yeah. Yeah. And then they're like, no, that's not what we do. We just research it and tell you if you have it or not. I'm like, oh, right. So that's why I paid $1,000. And they're like, yes. And you're like, sure. Wow, this is brutal.
Yeah. Right. So how many years ago is that you found out you had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome?
Probably like 8-9 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and you started the Whealth program for a year ago. You came in, this is news to me. I didn't realize that just even joining the Facebook group and program was having that, profound effect of you crying. And, a lot of our members feel like that because for once they're like, wow, like whether it be our hypermobility program or Limitless, they're like, wow, these people get it.
Yep.
After getting the diagnosis, and then you're like, okay, the scientists, researchers, doctors aren't like, we can't really help you with it. It's like we throw a label on you. What did you do after that?
Yeah. Sort of like just honestly, for a while, I kind of ignored it. I tried to. I'd just be like, you know what? It's fine. I'll just have like, you just do like hundreds of little iterations, right? If you have a mindset of like, how do I just do this better? Like when you put your hands in your pocket, you make a tiger claw, like you're about to punch somebody in the throat with your fingers. So
your finger joints don't dislocate.
So they don't dislocate when you put them in your jeans, right? Wow. And there's like 50 things like that. Maybe 10 or 20 that I do every day that are just like super minor adaptations, right? Mm-hmm. That allow you not to have to worry about that stuff.
Oh wow!
So you start like learning and picking up on those things, I have this one, which is, dude, it took me years to figure this out, but my elbow will dislocate, and I don't know the word for exactly what happens, but I found like after like, it doesn't pop back easily, but I found that if I like literally like hyperextend it a little and then twist the joint very slowly and then bring it back, I can actually pop it back into place. And so for a lot of the injuries that I have that are kind of semi-permanent, I can like figure out ways to like pop it back in, replace it, or prevent it, just by like really paying attention and being careful, essentially.
Sure. So what was your goal with joining our hypermobility program?
Yeah. So the goal was when I joined like a year or two ago, the main thing is it was right after like COVID, staying inside, and it was like, you go through like different patterns. And for me, I had sort of given up volleyball, which was my favorite sport. My doctor looked at me, and he was he actually has EDS. I have a doctor that has the thing. It's so rare. It's incredible. It took me a while to find him, but thank God. But so he was like, yeah, you really can't play volleyball. Like sand volleyball is like one of the scariest things on your knees. It's like you're drunk. First of all, you're drinking beer. You're like wobbling. Everything's like, most adults who are in their 30s should be careful playing sand volleyball while drunk, right? That's where most of the ACL injuries I've heard of from my friend group come from. But he's like, you specifically should not do that. So stop playing volleyball, stop playing other stuff. And the Whealth program, hypermobility specifically, was really impactful because I had got to a place where I'd stopped the things I liked, and I actually had started kind of getting like little injuries when I started to try like other activities. So I was just like, well, I just wasn't being active. Like I gave up all activity. And I was too scared. I was like too anxious and worried about starting any activity, including workouts. Like I had no way to get back on any track. Like I felt unable to start the lifestyle I knew I wanted to get back to. And that's where like the community and the videos and the very slow systematic growth and like approach, like strategic approach, like here's how you slowly and safely build muscles when you have hypermobility. That is nowhere else. Like and I spent a lot of time because I love learning, and I always try to look for stuff like that.
Yeah. And, so Katie and Andrew have EDS. I don't. One thing I've heard, categorically speaking, is a lot of the EDS Facebook groups, support groups, Reddit threads. I talk to people all the time who are joining our hypermobility program on the phone, and we tend to attract probably a little different person who's seeking not just recognition, but like true empowerment. And like, I don't necessarily need to part way with this diagnosis completely, but like, I don't want to be a lifelong, let's just say, victim to it or unempowered, or I can't do anything right. But I've heard categorically a lot of those so-called support groups are completely the opposite of supportive. Is that correct? Or how would you explain that?
So there's two reactions I've had to joining some of those groups. The first is they're extremely depressing. If you already are prone to feeling like overwhelmed by like something that's affecting you negatively, you go into those and they just drag you to the ground. And that's just it. And then the second thing is, if you want more and you're interested in learning, right, you got these analytical studies that are written for robots, right? You can't read these things. Thank God for ChatGPT and summaries. Like before that, though, this is when I was trying to figure this out. I would spend like hours trying to read a study on like EDS exercise, and it was just too hard. So those are the two avenues that I feel like aren't good for consumers, and where, like Andrew and Katie and this kind of program that you guys do is that's where this fits, right? It's like, how do we have an audience and a reach and a way to actually like show to take something from like the least understandable thing, which is a 87-page research study that no one can read, to a 30-second Instagram video that's like, hey man, I'm super stretchy, but I can still do this, watch. And you're like, whoa, it's literally the opposite, night and day. And it's so necessary, and we need more of it, and we need partnership with between the two. I'm super passionate about that.
Wow. When you said some of these groups would drag you to the ground, what did that mean?
It's kind of scary, right? It's not kind of scary. It is scary to have like a diagnosis. Like, it's heavy. It can be a relief when you're like, hey, I'd never had a name for the thing, so now I can solve it. But at first, I mean, it took me 2 to 3 years from my diagnosis, like, to like own it. Like at first, you have to like accept it and go through like the stages of grief, and then you take action, right? So if I had found Whealth like the second week after, I don't think I would have been ready. And it's to different degrees, I guess, but you have to be like ready to take any sort of action.
Sure. What you were talking about, how a lot of the kind of literature out there, things that you had learned about EDS prior to Whealth, was like, don't stretch, don't do yoga. It was kind of like a lot of don't do things, right? So it's like, just, we don't really know what you can do with EDS, but like, just don't do these things.
Yeah.
What have you learned from Whealth? Like, is what you're told true? Is it, I mean, what have you learned from?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, it's such a varying thing, right? People are all affected differently, but the thing I learned, many of the things I've learned from Whealth, some of those like short little 2-minute videos that are between all the workout exercises and the programs, right? So for me, I'll do the workouts Monday through Friday for like an hour in the morning, first thing. So because I'm a procrastinator and I get tired at the end of the day, but I hate mornings, but I do it. And then Saturday morning, I'll wake up, have a cup of coffee, and I'll like watch all the videos for the next week, and I'll like kind of get in the groove, spend like 2 hours Saturday, like just learning, Saturday or Sunday. And some of those learning videos, they were like that moment where we were like, ha, like, I know what that is. I've never seen anyone else know that. Never.
Interesting. So can you give an example of how a workout or video has connected to what having EDS or hypermobility is like?
Oh yeah. One thing is like, for example, and Katie's like really good, right? With really like breaking down and her experience with stuff too. But I remember like just like the things like how to drive in the car better, like how to watch out when you're doing like daily activities, those videos that were like, hey, like here are little things you can adapt in your life to do better. And some of them I'm like, I've been doing that for years and I thought everyone makes fun of me. Like literally people just make fun of you. Like that's weird. And then you're like, here are these people who are like, have also lived it and then like have thought about it a ton and clearly are able to come up with ways to live through it and really do well. So I don't know, there were little tips in there that I was like, wow, that's amazing. I do that. And then the other ones were like, oh, I never thought of that. And when I apply them, they work. So it felt very real and very immediately applicable. So I'm great at not answering questions because I lose my train of thought, which is why I think me and Andrew would be boys. I like legit think there it went. Like,
hey, there we go. I mean, that's kind of the nice thing about sitting down for a podcast. It doesn't have to be so polished, and that's why I started this as well. Speaking to that, just kind of what you're saying, it's wild going from an 87-page paper on EDS and you're fearful and you're like, what do I do? Whereas then you have the other side of like what our Instagram is. Katie and Andrew will make 30-second clips and you're like, whoa, that's kind of cool. Same thing, you actually helped us put out your story on Instagram and I think it was 1 to 2 minutes. But there's so much depth in there because you were talking about how, you went to physical therapy and you spent thousands of dollars and like, physical therapy was the wrong tool for you. And you left feeling anxious and depressed, right? Anxious.
Yeah.
And
oh yeah. You can say it.
Yeah. I want to make sure I'm not putting words in your mouth, but
I appreciate it.
What, like in that experience though, and I just lost my train of thought as whatever, but we'll go to this.
The wrong tools, right?
Yeah, yes. There we go. Why do you think like the tools that are currently prescribed, let's just say, we got a lot of different members, but we're talking about hypermobility here, hypermobility, EDS. Why is physical therapy or why are some of those common tools not the best or blatantly just not the ones to use for most people?
It's so wild. But yes, let's dig in here. So, and remember, my two besties are physical therapists who have moved on to other stuff, but they were for years. Like that was their main career, right? They love that stuff.
Interesting. Yeah.
So, okay. So physical therapy, the way it's structured and set up, first of all, it's like $100 plus a session. I mean, right there, that's a lot. The second thing is when you go to like a PT clinic and you're like, hey, you actually have the opposite problem of 99% of their people. Their people got done with a surgery or something, usually ACL, MCL, et cetera, or something they're doing, and they're trying to get more mobility. So they're like great at like, let's get more mobility. They watch me do a squat and they're like, holy shit. I've been trying to get that range of motion for my clients my entire life. And I have never seen anyone be that flexible with their hips and their legs and their ankles. And they're like, they don't really like, it's the opposite of what they're used to doing, I guess. If that makes sense.
Totally makes sense. Yeah. We hear that all the time. Like, and I guess it's where, a lot of people are like, oh, well, you just need to stretch and you need to get out of pain. And stretch to get out of pain. That is one thing I would say pretty purposely in our hypermobility program. There's not so much just passive stretching. I would say probably, there are going to be nuances and whatnot, but your issue, Josh, for lack of a better term, was not a range of motion issue, right? It has probably never been a range of motion issue, but how would you describe now moving forward, going from PT where they're really trying to drive range of motion when you already have the range of motion? What do you feel like was kind of the missing link there?
Yeah. So like with PT, and I did, to be fair, you also have to, just a quick aside, right? That's my life, but all asides, but in PT, you have to go in there just like you do with a doctor, and you have to go in positive, organized, prepared, and truly owning your shit. If you show up for a second like, hey, I'm just here to like get some help, like you just get put through the system like a square peg, but you're a round peg, man. Get your round peg hat on, like get ready. Like, so when you go into physical therapy, you get to say, hey guys, look, I have hypermobility EDS. Here is a paper on it. here is a link on how it works, and here's a YouTube video called Shirtless Dude on Instagram, right? Like, seriously, I like give them all these resources. I say, here's everything you need to know to help me, okay? You know all about the body. I need stuff that can build my confidence, and I need you to help me build a workout program of some sort that can build stability, specifically in my knees and my elbows, but also core strength, because I'm weak as hell, because I'm scared to hurt myself. So I've had success by doing that explicitly, but the reason why Whealth is so much more effective than a physical therapy route, I did go that route, right? What happens is you go to physical therapy, you learn your 8 exercises, you build your workout, right? You're like, I built a workout, but you build one workout and then you get bored of that workout. And then you're like scared to try anything else without going and doing another $1,000 of PT. Like any sort of like small adapted, you're like, I don't know enough. It's so much more helpful with the Hypermobility Wealth Program, right? To the way you sort of build baseline knowledge of like how things work and why it matters. That's what you need. You need to become a chef. Like you need to be an expert on how these things work, at least. And it's so easy to get there slowly in a safe way with the program.
So what do you think most people, though, because I mean, I know what the program looks like, you know what the program looks like, and this is, I guess, kind of, an idea behind these conversations. Take something that is so abstract, because people will be like, wait, what? Like, Whealth has a hypermobility program. Like, what is the magic sauce? I mean, what does a day-by-day routine look like when you join the Whealth program? What are you actually doing and getting done so that you can build more stability, strength, reduce pain, that sort of thing?
Yeah. So day by day, I did it on the phone app or on my laptop. I just had a little downstairs area with a rug, very little equipment, almost nothing. And basically, you get up, you watch a video or two. It's like, hey, welcome. Here's some information, a couple minutes of videos. You learn some basics about stuff. And then you can kind of go through and you can choose to do it a couple ways, honestly, but you can learn and see like, hey, here are 4 exercises that are going to build baseline strength in a safe way. And we're going to work through this program to continue as like building on those. And you'll start with like the basics, you know what I mean? Like breathing, right? Stuff that you actually, and I know a lot of people who've struggled with just doing a single sit-up, right? Or like, they're like, I cannot do a push-up from my knees. First of all, I can't use my knees because they hurt. Second of all, my elbows are dangerous. So what if I did a push-up and broke one of them? Like that kind of mindset, right? It's not wrong. You could hurt yourself, right? So like the cool thing about Whealth is that the hypermobility piece is that it starts you very slow with information. It says, look, we're going to strengthen these things, and we're going to start with literal like elbow rotations, right? And we're going to work on building like core elbow strength before we have you do push-ups, right? Or before we have you any of that stuff that you'll jump right into in most workout programs.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you think, though, you were in those support groups and kind of going through that as well. And, you've come so far as well. Like you actually got down, you did the workouts, and you found kind of some solace and confidence in building that up, right?
Yeah.
What's the other kind of side of the path if you're not doing that? Like, what does your life look like if you don't find this sort of thing for yourself?
Totally. It's hard to talk about, but it's the things you love and not doing them. So it's like, for everyone that's different, like what that is. For me, it's I like to go to like EDM. I like to go to concerts, right? I like to dance. And it's being too afraid to dance. And that's deeply sad to me.
Yeah, I think dancing and going to concerts and that sort of thing. I mean, I love that too, right? It's just, it's fun. You got all the vibes. When you're saying you're too afraid to dance, this is, if I go to concert, I am expecting an outcome, and that outcome is what, knee dislocations and pain, or like, what does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like if I go to a silent disco, for example, there's some fun ones here in Wilmington, but like if you go to like a silent disco or you go to a concert, a rave, whatever it is, you kind of know like, all right, my feet might be swollen, right? And my like toes might hurt. They're going to hurt. And if I'm like actually like in jumping around, I might hurt my knee. So at least for me, right, I have anxiety. I get anxiety around those things. I'm like, oh, like concerts are dangerous. Like be careful of concerts. Be careful of fun times with your friends. So it can kind of like over time and then it's reinforced with pain. So that's scary. Uh-oh, it hurts. That really is scary. I was right to think it's scary. Well, we should avoid it, right? And then you avoid the things you love, and then it's what is the point, right? It's kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because, I mean, I feel for all of our members who come in or anyone, there's a lot of people who are going to frankly listen to this conversation and know that they should do our program, and they're not going to because they are going to be held back by fear. And I can get that because you have like such a mountain of proof that what you think about your life is the way that it is. And that's true. That's what it looks like today. And that's what it's looked like in the past. But trying to envision a future is like, how do you even do that?
Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about it. See, that's the reason why I'm down to jump on this podcast and talk to this. And I want to spread this, right? Because I genuinely feel like it changed my life, right? And I think I know so many people with EDS or with hypermobility of different types who don't know about this. And anyways, the way it works for me was, you do these things, it's safe, you don't hurt yourself. And it's actually building the mental rep of I didn't hurt myself today and I improved my body. I didn't hurt myself the next day and I improved my body. And I learned about my body and I learned little tips to, I never thought of that. And, what if I eat a little bit differently in this way? Or I never even knew that this thing, and there's these just little tiny things that you can learn that with this program, Andrew and Katie have lived, right? And they've researched and they've done that work. So you can sort of get 20 years of people who focus on this in the fucking program. Like the value is, it's unlimited. Like I know that's like it, but it's unlimited because I don't know how else to get it. And I've tried, damn it. Like I've tried to find that value elsewhere.
Right.
But it's step by step is the thing. And eventually you get those mental reps and you're like, it's not that scary. And then you take that, you keep moving it up. And at the end of the day, for me, I felt a little better. I finished the Hypermobility Program, 3 months or so is I think how long it took me. I finished it and I just immediately restarted it at week 5 and I was like, let's go again. But I went to I went to raves. I went to those silent discos, started playing pickleball. Oh man, I'm on the courts now, baby.
Me too. Yeah. It's so fun, man. I'm addicted.
Yeah. But it gets you there. Cause I wouldn't have done it before. Yeah.
That's so cool. So, you're a tech guy. You mentioned ChatGPT. Can you, is the lack of results with people with hypermobility, EDS, and let's just define results, superior living? Because I think there is, that's very, very vague definition, right? But I think there's a lot of info out there when it comes to EDS on, let's just say, management. But from what I've seen, a lot of that management, oh my God, it's just so depressing, right?
Yes.
In our program did not take away your EDS, but I do think maybe it has empowered you and stripped you from some of the aspects of the diagnosis that maybe you were clinging to. I mean, have there been parts of your diagnosis with EDS that are formally part of the label that you've actually been able to part from?
Yeah, no, I think you're onto something. Clearly you work with this group, right? That is a huge problem. It's one of the main problems. And this program helps with that because it's very common to label yourself in that way. And for me, like, luckily, again, because of my little sibling and my best friends being PTs and my research and like the way I think, I have a very try hard mentality, I could say, right? I didn't struggle so much from like a label, right? But most people I know with EDS do. It messed with me for years. I went to therapy, the other place that I love going to get better. And by doing that, I got over that piece, right? But this reinforced getting over it, if that makes sense, for me personally. It was like, hey, I got over that kind of label, that worry, but this is the way to take action to me, and the path to take action once you're like, I'm ready to tackle this. Like, I'm not just this thing,
right?
Like, I'm totally different. I'm a nerd. I'm a gamer. I'm a 10 other things, right? Like, and you can sort of define yourself different from any sort of diagnosis.
I think most people probably, once they get a diagnosis, I think people go and whatever. I have back pain, I have sciatica, I have shoulder pain. I want to get such and such MRI or X-ray so I can get my diagnosis because I want to take action. I think most people don't want to live with the pain and issues, right? So I think there's this perceived thought process that if I get this diagnosis, I'm on the path to solving something, then at least I can take action. Unfortunately, a lot of times when we get the diagnosis, based off of the way that the system works for all of these things, the action is, sure, it's action, you're doing something, but a lot of times it's not really the action that moves you forward.
Yep.
What are the types of action out there that people who get diagnosed with EDS take, like in conventional streams? I mean, and we can kind of juxtapose them to Whealth.
Yeah. The most common one is people don't even believe, like, so you get diagnosed and they're like, okay, fine, you have this thing. And then none of the people in your like medical system, so all your specialists, whoever you're working with, right? First of all, you don't have that to start with. Then you find a general practitioner and they say, oh, okay, cool. So you have this thing. Well, make sure to be really careful and don't move. Don't play your sports and don't do your things. And generally, there's no cure. You're going to have it forever. But don't do anything dangerous. And that's kind of the like across the board thing I've heard from my friends and, you know, family members, everybody who's had this. And then if you go to PT, right, say when you do get injured, your injuries are worse, which reinforces not moving. And if you do know enough about like PT, or maybe you're like online, you're like, oh, maybe chiropractors will work. You're like, and you just chiropractors versus PTs never, you know, and you go and then the chiropractor does the thing and it like actually really hurts you, right? Just careful with that shit. Because like EDS and chiropractor is a little scary. But like you'll get hurt just going into the normal things. Like literally, I personally had multiple bad experiences with chiropractors where it actually injured me. And they were like doing things that were like exactly opposite of what I needed to be doing because they didn't know what EDS was. And I didn't know how to show up with my hat on. Like, this is what I am. Don't break me. Right. So anyways, you go through the system and each of them essentially either hurts you, gives you advice to not move, or charges you a ton of money to get a very limited amount of help that sometimes is the opposite of what you need.
It's interesting. So if you like, so there is power in knowing if you have EDS and you say, hey, I have EDS, like finally you can kind of put things together and be like, I don't need way more range of motion. I really need to build strength and stability. Mm-hmm. When you're saying like they hurt you because they don't understand, I understand what you're saying there. What things were you taking upon yourself that were hurting yourself?
Sure.
And maybe that was accepting the diagnosis or I mean.
Yeah, man, it's funny because my whole life I've lived really carefully and subconsciously known, like, don't get hurt, right? And so there are plenty of things that I've done, like, which are just normal living things. Like, again, like playing paintball, right? Or, jumping off steps for no reason because I'm out late one night, that kind of shit. Like, I can think of many, many times when I did silly stuff. which was just normal living, and hurt myself. Is that kind of what you're thinking? Like what are those instances where you're like, oh, I would do these things differently? Or is it more like,
I mean, open-ended question, really.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I was thinking about. But I guess as I was thinking in real time, I think a lot of times, like, if all we ever do is like say someone else hurt me or the system hurt me, or like, you know what I mean? Like, if you have EDS and you're like, well, the system doesn't understand me, the system is like, there's nothing the system can do. And I recognize that. I don't have EDS, but I had a disc herniation, and there were times in my mind where I was like, man, the system, blah, blah, blah. And my chiropractor hurt me. And, you know, like, and my chiropractor hurt me with the words that he told me when he said, I'm never going to get better again. So I did feel an element of hurt, like pointing at me, like, it's not my fault, it's your fault. But what I was thinking about in real time is, if you want to get better, you need to put the finger back at yourself and ask yourself, what am I doing that is hurting me? And what I found was, hey, my chiropractor, my PT, my MRI, all of these things said this stuff about me, but how I was hurting myself was I was accepting it as truth and not allowing myself to try to find something better to whether it be prove them wrong or prove myself right. So that's what hurt me in the short term, and I had to find a different way. And that's how I came across Andrew's program, and I did his program. So that mental thing hurt me. So I guess that's kind of what I was thinking about for you. What hurt you in that sense?
Dude, that's awesome. I'm glad you figured that out. That's so cool. I didn't know that. Yeah, dude. Okay, so that's a whole thing.
For sure.
That's a whole thing. And I guess some of those communities and some people I care about, they are trapped in that mindset. And I will say that I am lucky to have a less severe version of things. I have been fortunate to be able to pay for these services. Like, there's all those lists of like buts, right? Like, and acknowledging all that, right? But I think one of the, and you might want to cut this, but the sickest parts of today in the last couple of years even is that, like, it's not ableism to take care of yourself, man. It's not ableism to go, I am responsible for doing what's best for me physically and mentally, and like taking full ownership of that and working to make it better is the key cornerstone to getting better. And if you misconstrue that for something else, it's a trap. It's a trap that traps a lot of people in the community, and it's really deeply sad, and it's easy to fall into. And I've fallen in myself. And it's not all sunshines and rainbows, but damn it, like, take some ownership, and it's okay to try and fix yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, that's what we see. Cause I think there is this big trap in which, okay, you got a diagnosis. I think my perception, what I see sometimes is I think you have a label, and I think a lot of times people have pride behind that label. But then what I see is, if the narrative of EDS or hypermobility that you're bringing in is, I have this thing makes, like, all of these things, I'm not acknowledging the fact that you have stretchy skin and all those things. These are things that I don't deal with. I don't have EDS. I can clearly see the difference between mine and Andrew and Katie's body, the way that we move, the way that we store mobility. I'm so much tighter. I just haven't had freak accidents and injuries and dislocations. And in my mind, I would never think about dislocating my finger, putting my hands in my pockets. So I recognize that there are things that I don't even understand what it's like to not be hypermobile. But also a core belief that I have, no matter who you are on this planet, you can get better for yourself. And you probably could be, if you are in a very low place with pain, dislocations, I don't like how my body's moving,
Yeah.
I believe 99.9999% of people could probably be doing a whole lot better. And then everyone wants to go, well, like, what about this person who is in a wheelchair or in a car crash or paralyzed? And I get that. And I recognize that there are some situations in which like dramatic change has happened. And then sometimes you see with those people, they're the most positive people and they're trying to strive for better. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I think everyone really could strive for better, but I think there is that trap with the diagnosis where it almost by identifying as such thing, there might be short-term comfort. I don't know. I don't know. It's just, yeah.
Dude, I've like, yes, this is something deeply important. For me at least, right? Because the identity is so much to people, and it's so important, and it's you can define it and you can redefine it and you can dig into the parts you like about who you are and what your identity is. And this is like way past like working out tips and hypermobility, but it's important, right? Because
it's all part of it.
If you're like, I have X and it means I can't do X, and then you just are like, even if it's true that you need to, but you can always reframe it and you can always say like, it's difficult for me to do that. It is difficult for me to do that. And when I do, sometimes I have pain. And because of that, I should strengthen, or I should like, I need to work, like for me recently. So like, I'll just like for me, right. I remember starting the hypermobility program, and there was like one exercise where you're like doing in the beginning where you're getting finger strength with like rice, right? And I was like, why did I never think of this? Like, this is so important. And it's so silly for people who aren't doing things, but that, and then like balls I can squeeze and stuff. It's just it's such a little thing. But going from like, just having like the ends of my finger joints kind of like coming out, which when it happens, it means you can't like do things that day. It like ruins your day a little. You're like, oh man, I was going to play video games, or I was going to go play whatever. You're like, oh, like it's frustrating. My best way to handle that is go, man, my fingers pop out easily. And it's been getting a little worse after that injury I had when I was sandpapering. Shouldn't have done that. Now I know. 1, be careful when sandpapering. Maybe get a special handle. 2, make your wife do it. Thanks Bailey. But 3 is like, maybe I should go back to that exercise which strengthens my finger joints, and I should start thinking about how can I really strengthen these finger joints, and I have been, and it's empowering and it feels good, and it does help a tiny bit, and then you just keep stacking those tiny little bits, and it does help. Right,
because I think that there's kind of a continuum and a blend, right? Because in our hypermobility program, kind of the stuff that you're talking about, I think we have it's called the Hypermobility Survival Guide. And it is for when you join the program. And yes, we want you to build out months of workouts and get stronger, right? Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, when we are not as strong today as we will be in 3 months and 6 months and 12 months, what are those short-term strategies that we can do to mitigate subluxations, dislocations, this and that? So that's, a survival guide. And for you, you're like, well, when I'm sandpapering, I can, put on a different handle that's better for my wrists or fingers. Mm-hmm. And that's a great strategy. But what I see with people with hypermobility and EDS a lot of times is continually kind of going down that path of like, what's the next strategy to like mitigate, like what brace do I need to wear, this or that? And very rare, because again, we've talked about this, the comfort or the fear of I can't get stronger, I can't do this. So you're always looking for that next level thing to manage, but then our base level just keeps dropping rather than being like, hey, I'm having issues here. How do I build my resilience? That's really, where I think we have a realistic blend of what the program offers. But like, if you want to be resilient and you don't want your knees and your ankles and your fingers and your body to dislocate just by picking up a 2-pound weight or whatever, and you want to lift weights, like there are things that we need to actively do to strengthen our body. And it's not always just about finding a replacement.
Yeah. It's a while. Once you get through the easy stuff, like not getting trapped in the identity trap and not getting trapped in the, oh, I'm disabled, so I can't do anything. And then you don't accidentally get messed up by the system. And then you survive that, and you're surrounded by people who maybe are like, and you get the information you need. Once you pass all that, yeah, then it's like, cool. Now I'm ready to take those take those actions and steps. But the cool thing about, at least for me, it was the program, was it helps with all of that a little bit, right? A lot of it is action, but a lot of it is learning, and some of it is community. And action, learning, and community together is kind of the whole package. So, you know, I to be totally honest, I was on the Facebook group like maybe 30 times, right? And I would look and I just creep and I'd be, oh, who's joined? I'll like, and I'll say welcome, you know? But it was like meaningful to have that, right? It was meaningful to know that was there. And then there was a couple times like, oh, this exercise kind of hurts, I don't know. And I left a comment, and then people got back to me. Like, that had never happened before, man. Like, people were like I specifically remember, like, within like a day, people getting back to me. Either you got back to me, or I think at one point Andrew got back to me on one of my elbow exercises. And then with those, like, I know at some point, I don't know if you're still doing them because I haven't joined, but the like just the drop-ins, I see those sometimes too, right?
Yeah, the coaching calls. Yeah, we still do those.
Sick.
Yeah.
I joined like 4 coaching calls whenever I was like struggling with something or I wasn't sure. I just wanted to like get a little burst of motivation and like be able to talk out something. It's like those coaching calls cost hundreds of dollars with a PT. Like, sure. I know we're not PTs, but it's right. Like an hour of almost it's like, 10 people, and you're like, hey, I got a question, and you just get 30 minutes of someone like you who can help out.
Yeah. I mean, we're trying to, paint the picture that if you're listening, you're in pain, should give our program a go. Honestly, I'm biased, but I think that I'm in a unique position where it's been building the business has not been easy by any means. Like, it's been difficult, but it's been easy in other ways because I started as a customer 7 years ago. So like, I've gone through the same process that I ask all of our members to do, whether that be their emailing questions or on the phone. Like, I've gone through the process. I'm not, I'm never saying like do something that I haven't done. Rebuilding your body, getting out of pain, feeling better, like building strength, that's meaningful. It takes work, but I think it's the most worth it thing in life. And I think maybe going back to the diagnosis thing, I think there is power. Like, for me, what I found, the thing that I hold on to about my diagnosis, like that I like, is the fact that I was diagnosed with a disc herniation, and the fact that that diagnosis that I had brought about a lot of fear, uncertainty, things that I was told I would never be able to do. And I'm doing them again without pain. I have no more sciatica. I have no more back pain. And so I like to share my story on, I was diagnosed with this. This is what I was told. At 21 years old, I thought my life was over. I couldn't get out of bed. I mean, life just sucked. And this podcast is not about me, but life sucked. And now life is incredible. I have no more sciatic pain. I'm doing everything that I was told I wouldn't be able to do. So I like to share that story and identify with that diagnosis, simply because, not because I believe that to be true about myself, but because I know that other people who are in my situation right now, maybe holding on to a diagnosis, they want to make the connection that someone else with their diagnosis got better. That is really the only reason why I still even label myself as, oh, I had a disc herniation. Aside from that, I've moved on from that. It doesn't even scare me anymore. I've really strengthened my body, kind of balanced everything out. I move pretty well. I'm still learning stuff. And like, I think that's kind of what I would say with Katie and Andrew. Like, they're very realistic with like the things that EDS does to their body, but also I believe they identify themselves as they have EDS because, one, they do, but two, they want to show that there's another side of what EDS can look like. I have EDS, and look what I'm doing, and look at the challenges that I've overcome. And we want you to be able to do that as well. So it's not to just like completely discredit any diagnosis that you have, but also a lot of times there's so much more out there than what you just think about all the negativity that comes with your diagnosis. And the surest way to not improve is to listen to what the diagnosis says about you, how you're not going to improve, and then you believe it, and then you don't do anything about it.
Yeah. Dude, absolutely. And there is a lot of overlap, right, with There's a lot of overlap there. You know what I mean? That's why the kind of pain management and overcoming like labels and going from like I can't barely move at all because I have an injury to now I can move and do the things again. I think all that is shared with a lot of people who have my mobility. It's shared in a lot of similar ways and some different ways, but it really is at its core it's similar in some ways. And
it's so similar. I mean, because we have the Hypermobility Facebook group and we have the Limitless Facebook group, and we just, we've intentionally separated them now just so we can put everyone with hypermobility together. But like, you would be surprised. I mean, it's the exact same themes. Yes, a lot of our hypermobile members are demonstrating more range of motion, but sometimes people are coming in with EDS or hypermobility and they're stiff now because they've been in pain for so long and they're so guarded, So a lot of times it's very similar themes: fear, how do I get better? How do I get stronger? How do I build more stability? Mechanics look a little bit differently. Sometimes mindset's a little bit more different, depending on if they came from a really negative, EDS support group, or there's mountains of fear based off of that. I have EDS and I have a disc herniation or this or that. But dude, we see this with our Limitless members too. Like, they share the same exact fear of what having a label brings. Like they have the same, issues that you had.
Yeah. And the reason why I I think it's important to share this, right? And I'm in the hypermobility Reddit groups and stuff. I have like an alt account because I try not to go in there too much, but like,
yeah,
but it's bad. It's just bad for me.
What, Reddit in general or
in general, but also the hypermobility and like the EDS, like all those groups. I'm in a couple, mostly to kind of like, because I was there before, but now it's really just to when they actually when someone 1 in 10 shows like a glimmer of trying to get better, I'm like, bro, I got you. Check out the Hypermobility Wealth Program. Like, straight up, if you have any glimmer of hope or you have any sort of ownership that you could make a change, like I think anyone should do this because it can be really, really impactful, and people just don't know how impactful it can be if you try it. So it's I don't know how to. It's so hard because there's such a limited group of people with EDS out there, right? It's so rare, and there's no way to connect those people in sometimes. So you got to find them.
Right. Yeah. What are some of the like examples of sentiment? Like, if you're a typical EDSer in Reddit, on Facebook, what are you saying? What are you believing? What are you thinking? What are you seeing other people say?
Wow. Yeah. So usually it's like, hey, it starts with a paragraph or two. It's like, I'm extremely depressed and I'm sad and I can't do this thing I love. And I woke up and I'm hurting and I'm not happy. It's just this, it starts with a big post on how bad everything is and how no one's helping and how they feel despair generally. And then a bunch of people say, hey, I hear you. I feel that too. And then a block of how despair and pain and hurt that they have. And then other people and you see it and you go, wow, I have some of those things. Oh man. And that person's 40 or 50 or whatever. And like, theirs is way worse than me. Like, this is what I'm looking forward to. And it's just going to get worse. And like, and it again, like, that's how I see it. But a lot of the Redditors, it does sometimes start to feel like it starts from a place of, let me support people. Let me give them hope. Let me give them support, like a hand on the shoulder, like, hey man, I got you. Like I've got it too. But what it quickly becomes is, it's so bad. You know it's bad. I know it's bad. Look how bad it is. Look how there's no hope. I also have no hope. Look how bad my hopelessness is. Together we're so hopeless, man. And then it's like one-upping how hopeless you are. It's like, it's the depths, dude. It's so bad.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. If you search for EDS, that's what you find. And that's what most people end up, the only thing they see.
Yeah. So I'm not much of a Redditor and I've never been in an EDS support group, but that is exactly what I've heard from Katie and Andrew and all the members on the phone that join. Like, and that's what is so cool too, because the people that come to our program, like, when I do the phone calls with them, there's definitely moments and minutes and time spent where like they're explaining their situation and like, excuse me, there is that pat on the back of like, I've been there too. We've been there too. And I think that is a necessary component that all of us humans share. Like, pause before we take action. Like, hey, like so-and-so died. Like before, well, what are you going to do about it? Like, let's give hugs. Let's, this is tough. We can grieve a little bit, right?
Yep.
But I think people really like they grieve, they mourn, they complain, they victimize, like all these things, which I think maybe they get misconstrued for like we're helping one another out. But as you said, like it turns into like, hey, I'm sorry, I've been there. And I think it's really nice to hear that other people have been there when you're struggling because you go, well, I'm not alone. But then if you don't want to stay in that place forever, it's not just enough to know that other people have been there and they've stayed there because you're like, oh, wait, that's reinforcing that not only do I feel like this and other people feel like this, but they felt this exact same way in pain and hopeless.
Yep.
And they've been in my shoes for 5 years. So holy crap, I am effed. What you want, what I want, I won't tell anyone listening what you want.
Yeah, everyone wants this exactly. Yeah.
What I think most people want in life is to feel better. I'm not saying everyone's cut out to do the work or will, but if you feel like you actually want to feel better and like more stable, less pain, it's going to require work and it's going to require moving beyond the hugs and shoulder taps and like, all right, now let's get to work. Can someone show me like what I need to do, like truly what I need to do to move forward? And I think a lot of people probably, again, listening, if they have hypermobility, might think that that's what they're doing, right? So I don't know. I mean, I really have empathy because I think a lot of people also do just think they're trying their best. I know that I felt like I was trying my best for 6 to 10 months in PT in Cairo, and I just thought that's all it was. And then I came across the program and just had this light bulb moment, like, holy crap, like I am on the wrong path, So I don't know, man. I mean, what is there to do though for people who are thinking like that?
Yeah. Oh man. It's for me it's like, hey, you spend the moment, you say like, this is tough. I hear you. I see you. I believe you. That's really important. Like, cause you can go for years no one believing you. It's wild.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's
yeah. Like, oh yeah, sure. Whatever. And then you're like, what do you mean? Whatever. Like, this is my life. And then
for sure,
I believe you. And then it's like, cool. And now like, look at how we can get better. There's proof.
Yeah.
There are people who've done it, and there are people who maybe they're not, they're not like doing like crazy, like behind the neck, like Andrew one-arm pull up things, right? But like they've gone from like, I hurt when I sit to I can now walk 2 miles every day. Right. And it's this massive improvement. So it's like it's a pat on the back. It's I hear you, I feel you, and like let's try and do something about it. Like let's do it. Let's go. And it's more effective than like if you think about it, right? If you really break it down, and I always break things down. I love thinking about like why I make decisions.
Right.
So it's like how do you quantify what you get out of a 2 people who have lived this, who are fitness and involved in fitness and can give, 20 or 30 years of combined like learnings, like of how to live with something better and how to have your best life. Like just those little learning videos, not the survival guide, not the eating guide. Like those are all extras that are awesome, but just like you stack these on top of each other and all of a sudden you're like, man, if I can avoid one doctor visit, or if I can learn and empower myself to feel hope for the first time in years, it's not quantifiable to me. It becomes this thing where I would be like that obnoxious guy who's like if that's why I mentioned the HSA when I got it, because that was the thing. I was like, I don't know, like it's a lot of money, like like it's a lot. Like what if I just watch YouTube videos and try to figure it out myself again? But I failed 4 times doing that. You know what I mean? I felt uncertain. So for me, it's like spend on your health for your future if you can.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think this was interesting because I chatted with some guy the other day, and he's like, well, I was like, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm considering your program, but I've just been using ChatGPT to write me a program. And I think there's a lot of info out there, right? And I was like, I mean, that's interesting. I didn't know what to say to that because I hadn't thought of that. And I don't know. I don't want to just be like, that's not going to work. You know, I don't want to throw that into his mind. But, I mean, it doesn't sound like there's a lack of info out there, right? Because there's 87-page papers on EDS. But what is ChatGPT, or what is the current info out there telling you to do if you were to ask it to write you a program for EDS?
Well, that's well, let's see. So it's always my pinned tab now, but like,
dude,
essentially,
awesome.
yeah. I was actually quick aside. This is so stupid. Cool. Bailey is like, why are you always talking about this Cameron guy? I was like, because he's an executor, and I can tell. Like, anyways, you're like scheduled, followed up, done, moving on, and I'm like, this is how I work. And when people don't, it makes me crazy. Okay, so for like making these workout programs, right? Oh, I'll use ChatGPT. Great. It grabs the web, it searches.
Yeah,
it's great. It's great information, but it's not. Yeah, look, cat, cow, child's pose, bridges, planks.
Dude, yep.
Good. But those are the right exercises. But the community, the reinforcement, the videos that are detailed, and the specific, like, here has been my life experience, and I have similar things to you. You cannot get that. You just can't. From ChatGPT, and I love ChatGPT.
I do too. And here's the other thing too that I think is really difficult is all of that stuff, like whether it be our Limitless or Hypermobility program or rehab or whatever, if you were to search online right now, like, give me the 10 most effective exercises for back pain, I think it's really difficult because there is nuance. You kind of need coaching. You need eyes on you. Yep. But then even like if I were to say squat and Google said squat, like I could have 100 people perform it and it could look very different. People could be kind of using different mechanics. So just to say blanket statement, one exercise works for such and such thing, I think is important to consider how you're moving and what's going on there, right? And that's where the nuance is. Dude. And then, okay, who's right or wrong? Who's explaining how to do a movement right or wrong? You know, I don't want to say that other people are doing it right or wrong, or we're the only ones who are doing it right. Maybe people would say we're wrong, but I think you need some of that nuance in there, and also experience. But what you're talking about too, I think a repeated theme has been, I think the confidence and support that you got from other successful hypermobile members, you know, and hEDS members. And like, I think that gives you the encouragement to move through a daunting time.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, actually one of the things that you don't realize is like so important is, you know, I go to like group workout classes, which are actually like my scariest thing because I'm so I'm hyper competitive. And I'm super socially motivated. So you get me in a workout class with these like fit yoga pants moms who are just crushing it. Like they are just built, right? And there's like, like I break everything. Like I literally, that's like it's actually something I don't do because I know myself, because I'm like, I'll just do 10 more sets. I actually usually in those situations work out till I pass out or hurt myself, which is good for a lot of people, but not for me.
Right.
So, but why I mention that is because a lot of ways of working out are different for people, and it's even more complex when you have special needs that no one knows about, right? Or you have specific things. So when we're going through like even just the hypermobility program, it's like, hey, I remember specifically going through other programs I've done a lot and being like, oh, like, but you're telling me to do this exercise and we do it every day, but it really hurts my knees. And there's no like, hey, if this hurts your knees, like do it this way or do it this way. Or if you can't put the pressure on your fingertips or your ankles or your whatever, here's a cool way to adjust that. And you should always be okay adjusting because and just the constant reinforcement and learning 5 ways to do one exercise so that you can kind of dial it back or forward and listening to your body. Like that's not something you can get from a bulleted list. You know what I mean? Like that's like
oh, for sure.
It's really powerful. Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, man, the thing is these programs are so comprehensive. And, we were talking about it on the phone today, Katie and myself, and we're talking about just like making a few smaller programs. And Andrew's like, I don't know, like many people out there in the industry that have put in as much time into a course as we have as the Limitless and Hypermobility Program. And I think that's probably pretty true because a lot of like pain reduction or posture courses or biomechanics, like who wants to do like the Hypermobility Program has 10 modules, 7 workouts, each workout's 30 minutes. Like most people don't want to do that amount of work. And I think they kind of fall into the trap of like, well, it's probably not going to take that long for me, right? Or like I could probably pass by with 4 or 8 or 12 sessions, not like this full program. And then by trying to take the shorter route, you take the longer route, right? So again, that's where we kind of get and attract a really special person to our programs. Like they hear it, they know in their body they want to feel better. They know deep in their bones and their heart, like they want a better life. And they're like, something just doesn't seem right about like all these passive interventions and quick fixes. Like I know I probably have to have maybe a little more responsibility in this. I don't know. Ideally, that's what we're trying to help people, take is like more responsibility and then move beyond your diagnosis. It's fine if you want to hold on to it and be like, hey, I have this thing. This is what it allows me to do. This is what it doesn't. But there's so many, the problem with that though, again, I keep coming back to it. There's so many things that are just not true about what you can't do with any diagnosis.
Yeah.
And there are things that like probably might never change. Like you might always, and I would imagine you're probably always going to bruise like crazy, but maybe, I don't know, maybe there's supplements, nutrition, like you get stronger, like, but maybe you could improve that 1%. But I think there's key elements in your life that, you can improve so much more than any diagnosis would tell you to.
Yeah, it's true. There's a lot you can do. And it's weird. It's weird. It actually is like, I feel like very connected to the program now and like to you guys who run the program and have put this time into it. And, to everybody really, cause it's like, every day I do multiple things I learn from the program and I haven't been, I took a couple months where I was like, dude, I'm playing pickleball. I got a competitive laser tag league. Like I'm doing all this physical activity and I'm good. I'm going to concerts again and I'm feeling great. I'm feeling healthy. And then I'm like, you know what? I gotta get back in there and I want to go through it again so I can like reinforce these learnings and I can like get back. So I just started again last week on module 5, because that's when it gets a little harder, it gets like,
sure.
It gets a little more like into the weeds. So I think this will be my 3rd time. So yeah, I think it's like my 3rd full time going through.
Yeah, because you're coming up December 17th, 23 was when you put that first post and you're 3 days in, right? So yeah. I guess that's 55 weeks since then. So yeah, that's mathing out. I definitely, we wrap it up, but I saw, there were potentially tears coming out at specific times. I think when you were thinking about, what I saw you doing was processing what life could have looked like without wealth. What do you know now that is not true or to not be true with your diagnosis of having hEDS?
I think I'll answer that a different way because I think the thing, like if you're someone who's thinking about it, right? Because I did this too. I like lurked the podcast. I like checked out the free stuff, right? I was like, maybe it's right, maybe it's not. Right. But like if you're thinking about it and you're like, man, I just want some hope. That's the thing that gets me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have any, And like going from none to some to positive like growth is like, it's
that's living.
It's living, man. It's the whole package. So you gotta, you have to do it.
Yeah.
At least for me.
What does it feel like? What do you feel like now you can go out and do though? Now that you have hope and have you moved beyond hope? Because I guess hope is like
absolutely.
You're in a stage where you're like
that was big.
you're probably not too hopeful now. You're probably more so knowing and confident that you can do something, right?
But that was the piece that I couldn't get anywhere, right? Hope and community. Hope and positive community. So I've had people, hey, can you give me your login? Let me get that login, bro. And I'm like, dude, you don't want the login. You want the community. You want to actually like, I would give you the login, but that was the piece that I couldn't get anywhere, right? Hope and community. Hope and positive community. So I've had people, hey, can you give me your login? Let me get that login, bro. And I'm like, dude, you don't want the login. You want the community. You want to actually like, I would give you the login, but I will buy you the fucking program because like you need it. Like you need it because you need that reinforcement. You need those people who are being encouraging instead of discouraging. And you need that reinforcement when you're like, I'm not sure. You need someone to say, hey, I got you. You can be sure. You're doing it right. Or you're not doing it right. Do it this way. So yeah, I don't know. I probably didn't answer your question.
No. I there's no right or wrong way to answer. And as before our conversation, I was like, oh, what do I want to ask him? And I always think about that before a podcast. I'm like, I'll write out 10 questions. I'm like, I think I asked 2 of those and just see, everyone, your story has been awesome. I'm so happy that you have moved beyond that because I know what it's like too to just, oh man, that's why I love doing what I'm doing. And I love talking to our members who have, I don't know. I feel like it should be I don't know if it's a fundamental human right or opportunity, but to feel hope and to feel healthy and to feel like, I mean, how old are you, Josh?
34.
34, right? Like, I don't really even know or care whatever age it is, if it's 16 or 34 or 54 or 74. I think we should all have a right and hope to feel so much better.
Yeah.
If you have hypermobility or if you have hEDS or you just have back pain or whatever. And I think really in my heart, most people want to do that. And I think that's what we're trying to do, trying to cut through some of this noise and at least shed that message.
The next time we interact, right, I'm going to post on the Facebook group. It's going to be when I win a 4.0 pickleball tournament. That's going to be it. Me and my wife, we've been playing the doubles.
Are you at 4.0 right now?
No, that's what we're striving for, though. We're 3.5-ish. Yeah, we're getting in there. We got the moves, man. That's been our the thing that we've been unlocking. Yeah.
Let's go, dude. Funny you should say that. I just played in a 3-5 pickup or round robin last Saturday. I got the bug too, kind of last year. Fell off and have reignited that love for pickle. And I'm starting to think okay, I'm good. I'm way better than a beginner. I'm starting to get it, have finesse on the shots. It's been so fun. And I think I went to a 3-5 play, whatever league the other night. And it was kind of better than most people. So I'm all right, maybe starting to get up there. How does the ranking work?
Oh, dude, that's a whole thing.
There's
8. There's no. We don't know, but you can go and you can literally Google what's a 3.0, 3.5 player supposed to be able to do successfully. And when you read that, you'll go, wow, am I don't think I am. It's for example, it's consistent third shot drops, consistent ability to control placement in these ways, doesn't miss serves, always can return successfully into the back of the line. And it's the consistency is the key. And then you play with 3-5s who say they're 3-5s, and you're like, dude, that guy missed half of his drops. He doesn't even know how to do one. And they don't know the moves and the stuff, and that's fine because they're just I'm better than those other people I played with.
Right.
And so it's based on your community.
Sure.
So each community is totally different. But the key is that, at least for us, is for me, it was I can't play volleyball. And then I'm like, what's with this pickleball? This is good on the joints. Let me get in there and play something that's healthy, fun, social, and I can play till I'm 75. Yeah.
Dude, it's incredible. I was playing the other night with some gentleman he's got to be 75 and incredible mobility. I mean, yes, of course, he's not as agile as I am, but I'm like, dude, this dude is moving great. And I'm like, that is so cool to see that is an example of what we can strive for. Out there, I guess maybe this is how we'll end. There's a lot of people who are 20 years old and they're like, oh, it's just age. Or there's people who's 30 years old. It's just my age. 40 years old, 50 years old, 60 years old. but there's always some like glimmer of hope out there who is showing that like in your situation, you could get better, or unfortunately, I think there's a lot of proof out there that you can't get better. And I think that's really up to you, to what you want to choose. And Josh, I will say, I feel like you made the right decision joining the Whealth program, paying with your HSA.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on. It was great chatting. I want you to know you're the first Hypermobile member that we've interviewed. So thank you for being a spokesperson for what's possible. And thank you for all the encouragement in the community and whatnot.
Dude, heck yeah. Any way I can help. So happy to be here. Appreciate
Awesome.
it, man.
Do you have anything else that you want to say that we didn't cover?
I wish I had like something like check out my I'm a Lightsaber affiliate link. I wish I had something I could plug. Check me out on my website, but none of that matters, man. Just buy the program and get healthy, guys.
All right, thank you. We didn't pay Josh to say that, by the way.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, thank you, man. Have a good one.
Later, Cam.
All right, peace.